The discovery of a young girl's body in an abandoned building sends shockwaves through a community, igniting a desperate search for answers and unleashing a torrent of grief. But this tragedy, the death of 13-year-old Kimmani Latig in Toledo, Ohio, is more than just a local horror. It's a chilling tale that quickly spirals into a vortex of suspicion, betrayal, and potential systemic failure, with the shadow of suspicion fallen upon the one person who should have offered her the greatest protection, her own father. Dorothy Latigue, Kimmani's grandmother and legal guardian, returned home on what should have been an ordinary day. Instead, she was met with a scene that defied normalcy, a tableau of unsettling disorder that immediately triggered a primal sense of dread. Kimmani was nowhere to be found. This in itself was deeply alarming, as Kimmani was a child of routine and habit. But it was the details of the house that truly set off alarm bells, painting a picture of a sudden and violent disruption. Kimmani's glasses and keys, items she was utterly dependent upon to navigate the world, lay abandoned on a nearby table. It was as if she had been abruptly taken away without even the most basic necessities. The stove in the kitchen was inexplicably left on, filling the air with a faint, ominous smell of gas, a detail that spoke of a hurried departure or a struggle. And then there were Kimmani's clothes, scattered and strewn about the living room, a chaotic jumble of garments that hinted at a disturbance, a loss of control, or perhaps even a violent confrontation. Her pajamas were discarded on the dining room floor, as if she had been pulled from her bed in the dead of night. These were not the signs of a child who had simply wandered off or decided to visit a friend. These were the hallmarks of an event, a significant and disturbing occurrence that had upended the very fabric of Kimmani's safe haven. Dorothy Latigue, a woman who knew her granddaughter's routines and habits better than anyone, recognized these red flags for what they were: a desperate cry for help, a silent scream that something was terribly, irrevocably wrong. Overwhelmed by a sense of dread and a grandmother's intuition that something was deeply amiss, she wasted no time. She immediately contacted the authorities, setting in motion a frantic search and triggering an investigation that would soon spiral into a nightmare. As the police launched their investigation, Kimmani's family, friends, and the wider community rallied together in a desperate attempt to find the missing teenager. Missing person flyers bearing Kimmani's smiling face, a stark contrast to the grim reality of her disappearance, were distributed throughout the city. Search parties, composed of volunteers and concerned citizens, combed the neighborhoods, scouring every street, alleyway, and abandoned building, clinging to the hope of finding her alive. Desperate pleas for any information, no matter how small or insignificant it might seem, echoed across social media platforms and local news channels, a chorus of voices united in their anguish and their unwavering determination to bring Kimmani home. Amidst this outpouring of community concern, Kimmani's father, Darnell Jones, stepped into the public eye, making his own appeals for help in finding his missing daughter. He presented an image of a concerned parent, a distraught father desperate for the safe return of his child. He spoke to the media, his voice filled with what appeared to be a mixture of worry and confusion. He recounted the last time he had seen Kimmani on the night of March 16th, when she had reportedly called him, expressing fear about being home alone. According to Jones, Kimmani had told him she felt like someone was trying to break into the house, a terrifying scenario for any young girl, especially one left alone at night. In response to her distress, Jones claimed he had driven to the house with his cousin, arriving shortly after her call. He stated that he had stayed there with her, offering comfort and reassurance until around 12:30 a.m. before leaving her alone once more and returning to his own home. He portrayed himself as a caring father, a man who had responded to his daughter's fear and taken steps to ensure her safety. But even as he spoke of concern and fear, Jones's account was riddled with inconsistencies and unanswered questions that raised eyebrows among investigators and those following the case. His demeanor, while seemingly distraught, also struck some as oddly detached, lacking the raw, unfiltered emotion one might expect from a parent facing such a horrifying situation. And his narrative of the night in question was filled with holes and contradictions. Why, if his daughter expressed such palpable fear, would he leave her alone in the house in the middle of the night, especially if he suspected a potential threat? Did he call the police to report the potential break-in, to ensure that law enforcement was aware of the situation and could provide additional protection? Did he inform Kimmani's mother or grandmother, her legal guardian, of her fears and his visit, allowing them to make their own informed decisions about her safety? These were not the actions of a parent genuinely concerned for their child's safety, and these unanswered questions, these nagging doubts, would later become crucial pieces of a much darker and more sinister puzzle, casting a long shadow of suspicion over Darnell Jones. The initial hope for a safe return, the desperate clinging to the possibility that Kimmani would be found alive and well, soon morphed into a grim and horrifying reality. The search for Kimmani took a devastating turn when her lifeless body was discovered in an abandoned building on Miami Street in North Toledo. The news spread like wildfire, extinguishing the flickering flame of hope and plunging the community into a state of profound shock and disbelief. The missing persons case abruptly transformed into a homicide investigation, and the focus of the investigation shifted from rescue to recovery, from hope to despair. The details of the discovery were gruesome and disturbing, painting a picture of a crime of unimaginable brutality, a level of violence that left even seasoned investigators shaken and traumatized. Kimmani had been subjected to a level of physical and sexual violence that defied comprehension, a horrific and senseless act that spoke of a depraved mind and a complete disregard for human life. Her young body, barely on the cusp of womanhood, had been treated with a savagery that left the community reeling in disbelief and disgust. The news reports, while carefully worded to avoid graphic detail, spoke of multiple incised wounds to the neck, indicating a violent and deliberate act of murder. They also revealed that Kimmani had been sexually assaulted, a further violation of her innocence and a testament to the depravity of her attacker. Her hands were bound, suggesting that she had been restrained and helpless in the face of her attacker's cruelty. She was found partially clothed, a detail that further underscored the sexual nature of the assault. The scene was described by one investigator as one of the most horrific cases he had ever encountered in his career, a testament to the sheer brutality and depravity of the crime. The community, already reeling from the initial shock of Kimmani's disappearance, was now plunged into a state of profound grief, anger, and disbelief. How could such a horrific act have been perpetrated against such a young and innocent girl? Who could be capable of such unimaginable cruelty? The discovery of Kimmani's body shattered the illusion of safety and security, leaving the city grappling with a profound sense of vulnerability and a burning desire for justice. In the immediate aftermath of this horrifying discovery, suspicion began to coalesce around one central figure, Darnell Jones. He was, after all, the last person known to have seen Kimmani alive. His initial account of their last encounter, already riddled with inconsistencies and unanswered questions, began to unravel further under the intense scrutiny of the investigation. He struggled to provide a coherent timeline of his movements and his interactions with Kimmani, offering conflicting stories and vague explanations that only deepened the suspicion surrounding him. As investigators delved deeper into the timeline, Jones's inability to account for significant periods of time, particularly the hours between his departure from Kimmani's house and the discovery of her disappearance, became a major focal point. Where had he been during those crucial hours? What had he been doing? His evasiveness and lack of transparency only served to fuel the growing belief that he was withholding crucial information, perhaps even attempting to conceal his own involvement in the crime. The police launched a manhunt, tracking Jones across state lines in a desperate attempt to bring him in for questioning. The chase eventually led them to Columbus, Ohio, approximately 2 hours south of Toledo, where Kimmani's body had been found. Cornered and desperate, Jones refused to surrender, engaging in a dangerous and tense standoff with the SWAT team sent to apprehend him. The situation escalated rapidly, with Jones brandishing a weapon, leading to a tense confrontation and an exchange of gunfire. Ultimately, Jones was taken into custody, but not before sustaining critical injuries that required immediate hospitalization. His actions, far from those of an innocent man protesting his innocence and cooperating with the investigation, painted a damning picture of someone with a guilty conscience, someone desperate to avoid capture and the consequences of his crimes. His flight, his resistance, and his violent confrontation with law enforcement only served to solidify the belief that he was deeply implicated in Kimmani's death. The evidence against Darnell Jones, the man accused of killing his own daughter, mounted with each new revelation, painting a damning picture of a man driven by a darkness that ultimately consumed the life of a young and innocent girl. His erratic behavior, his attempts to evade capture, and the damning testimony of his girlfriend all pointed towards his guilt. Yet the case of Kimmani Latig is more than just a story of a horrific crime and a monstrous perpetrator. It's a stark reminder of the vulnerability of children, the potential failures of the systems meant to protect them, and the urgent need for vigilance and proactive intervention to safeguard the most innocent and defenseless members of our society. As the community mourns the tragic loss of Kimmani Latig and seeks justice for her untimely death, we are left to ponder some difficult and unsettling questions. How can we ensure that no other child falls through the cracks? What will it take to truly protect the most vulnerable among us and prevent such unimaginable tragedies from happening again? The case of Kimmani Latig serves as a chilling reminder that the safety and well-being of our children cannot be taken for granted, and that constant vigilance and systemic reform are necessary to prevent such horrors from recurring.